Welcome to Eye on the Illini. This is an ecstatic Mike Cagley after an incredible finish to an Illini game that is, Ked, how do you describe that?
I was already prepared to to say what was going to happen while they lost, and Pat Bryant and Luke Altmaier just came through at clutch. But I was telling people with a minute to go in the offense, I was confident Barry Lundy Jr. was going to dial up the right play. They just had to protect Luke. That was the only thing. They would at least had a chance at a field goal. But the way that ended, you couldn't have scripted it any better.
Yeah, I was. It was just incredible to see. Just one of those things that I got to be honest with you. You got to give this Illini team credit. They don't tend to ever give up, and they keep fighting until the end. And this was a great, great example of that. We're not going to take too much time here, folks. We know there's people who are switching over to Big Ten Plus to watch the basketball team play. Couple things, Ked. I was frustrated as the game was going on because Illinois had given up a ton of penalties and the miss extra point. I felt like they gave the game to Rutgers, and then this happens.
They did, Mike. They gave the game to Rutgers, but at the end of the day, winning teams with winning records make winning plays, and they did that. I This was just a loss, and it was one of those typical losses that I always complain about. That Illinois does Illinois things, and to be honest with you, for our IlliniGuys company, there was probably 12 of us. We do our annual picks. I was the only guy, the only loser to pick the only loser to pick against Illinois because I thought that was going to happen. So kudos to the staff. They have 8 wins. Go take care of business at Northwestern. What a great season. And I'm really happy for this group in general. This means so much to the program on so many different levels.
Yeah, I have to be honest. This was just an incredible come from behind victory. And I really felt like Luke didn't have his best stuff in terms of throwing today, but goodness gracious, did he show up with his legs at key times? And I gotta be, I've not been a fan of Cagley, but I will tell you, he showed up big as well. Illinois played a healthier Rutgers team. I really thought this was going to be a challenge on the road. I thought it would be close. I did not think it would require a score in the last 4 seconds, but I thought the Illini would win. But I thought it was just a fantastic thing. Here's the frustration I had. It seems like when on the pass rush, Illinois is consistently losing contain on the right on the defensive end that's over the right tackle, and the guys, it doesn't matter
Joe
who it is, seem to
This
get too
Grayson, he's
deep.
been awful. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah,
He's been awful.
yeah, and it's just been devastating, and so I thought that was rough. But I did think the other thing is I thought Illinois ran the ball really well. I think they're starting to look like that offensive line that we expected. Luke only got sacked at the very end of the game, and rushing wise, Illinois was starting to run the ball a little better, and then Altmaier went crazy.
Here's what I'm concerned about for the long aspect of the game. Illinois tried to get pressure to the Rutgers quarterback. They tried. They just didn't. They weren't successful. And to me, I look at this game. It was one in the trenches. Rutgers had all the time in the world to throw the football today, and it's just for some reason they could not. They couldn't get a hold of him. They couldn't get to him. And I've always said I shouldn't have mentioned names, but the right tackle was just awful today, and it was the play was awful, and you cannot continue to make those mistakes. They really exposed them one time when they showed just a lack of athleticism to be able to block in the end. Mike, that's not good. And so that's something that they're really going to have to fix if they want to sustain to get to where they want to go, because you cannot continue to do that, at least in my personal opinion.
Yeah, that was my thought as well. I think overall the Illinois defense showed up when they had to. Again, Rutgers is a better team. It was one that you and I and Brad were higher on than a lot of people. And I think had they not had the injuries, I think they would have come into this with a significantly better record. They had a nice schedule, but that got torn apart by, again, the injuries. I thought Illinois played a much better and much more inspired second half, scoring 29 of their 38 points in the second half. And Ked, if you would have told me at the start of the season that Illinois would have a shot to win 9 games in the regular season, I would have laughed at you.
I know, but again, I was the one guy that picked 7 or 8. And I'm sitting here saying that, and then I was the one guy who picked them to lose today. So,
Well,
go figure.
yeah, and I do think this really was. I thought Bryant was incredible. Um, the first game I think in ages that Franklin hasn't caught a pass. Got a couple on the bounce, got a couple out of bounds. But boy, Pat Bryant, if I don't know, I haven't seen many things that scream NFL the way that performance did today.
Mike, just real quick here. Pat Bryant, 197 yards, 64 yards long, 131 yards after the catch. Just impressive. And you knew, everybody in the stadium who knew anything about football knew if you were passing the ball, who was going to go get it. You talked about Luke not having his best stuff. I was critical of him at first, but you know what? The win today was brutal. A lot of those balls hung up in the air for both quarterbacks, not just Luke. It hung up in the air, which made it tougher for some of those catches. But I tell you, if you're an NFL guy, and we know how the pros look at different things, that kid has just been remarkable for Illinois all season. I hope he's a first-team All-Big Ten with those kind of numbers. Just sure-handed guy. And every time, all season long, he and Zachary Franklin have just come a plug. That's why with 1 minute and 8 seconds on the clock, I said it again, I was not panicking because I felt that if Luke, they could protect him, they would get open and they would make plays. And Barry Lunny's offense play calling to me was great today. The one thing real quick, I've really been paying attention to this. Illinois struggles because they can't get 4 or 5 yards on first down, Mike. They're always in second and long and third and long. If they could somehow get 4 or 5 yards, I don't care whether it's passing or running, I think they'll score more points, but their running game, they just don't do that. And that's what costs them, to me, points early in the season, earlier in the game, and sometimes later in the game.
Yeah, and just to throw it out to you, with 197 yards of receiving today, that would put him the new number 7 on the single game receiving yardage for Illinois, falling in behind Isaiah Williams and Mike Dudek, who are tied at number 5 with 200 yards. A heck of a game here. Of course, we saw just almost a year last year in November 25th, Casey Washington had 218 yards. So we got to see another incredible performance here today. Folks, we don't want to compete too much against the Illini basketball game. We just wanted to put some of these highlights out there. We're going to go through, get a few comments here before we break. Okay, so let's go a couple things here. Did they skip the post-game conference? There will be a post-game conference. Matt and I will be on. We haven't made the decision. We might go live, and I hate to do that, but we're watching the Illini basketball game out of one eye. And then we will have a live with Brad Sturdy and Ked after the basketball game, which we will probably have bleed over into football topic as well. So be looking for a tweet from Ked, Brad, or myself to see exactly how we lay that. But we don't want to compete right now against that. We have that. And of course, the key is, folks, if you want to stay up to date, if you follow any one of us, you should follow all of us at Mike Cagley, at KedPrince4, at Sturdy32. If you're sitting around somewhere and you're watching this or you're listening, just go ahead on your Twitter and at Mike, Cagley, or at KedPrince4 or at Sturdy32. Put it in there and give us a follow. But you can see later on today how we will do this. This was a huge thing because Illinois now has opportunity. They still can get 10 wins this season. And that is a tremendous opportunity. They got to go beat Northwestern. That's not an easy thing to do, but it's something they need to do. And then have an opportunity in a bowl game to show an Old Miss or somebody like that football up north is tougher than what they think. Ked, any final thoughts here before you and I talk later on this afternoon after the basketball game?
What an exciting day. I'm just really excited for the university and the football family altogether. The way that game ended was just, it doesn't happen in Illinois very often. It was just nice to see.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. So that's our really brief instant take, folks. Thank you so much for listening. See us out on Twitter. And of course, you guys can go to IlliniGuys.com. And if you go there, 27 cents a day, I would really encourage you to get involved, being part of that community and being on the message boards and talking with a boatload of Illini fans from across the country and across the world. And you can talk to Ked, Brad, Larry, Matt, and myself. Until right now, go Illini.
This is the run my own business dream. This is the college is paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
Red Grange wasn't just a football player, he was a legend. Discover the untold story of Illini great Red Grange in a new novel by Doug Vilhard called The Golden Age of Red. This captivating book takes you back to the 1920s when a humble young Illinois player transformed into the galloping ghost and electrified the nation. Get your copy of The Golden Age of Red by Doug Vilhard today, available on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
As we talk about the exhilarating Illini victory over Rutgers, Matt, how would you describe this and what would you say about it here?
That was fun. Wasn't it fun?
Yeah.
It was a really good competitive football game. And I thought, once again, showed everybody what they are in one-score games. I think that the record, at least the last 2 years, and the record in the Bielema era in one-score games has been pretty phenomenal. And I think it's also a testament to how this team can react when they don't come out of the gate as well as they'd like to. When you score on your last 4 offensive possessions, score touchdowns in your last 4 possessions, that showed me that Barry got in and said, hey, what's working, what's not, and let's do more of that. And then, again, sometimes, Mike, this as well as I do, like sports sometimes just isn't complicated. You get the ball to your best players, and sometimes they do really great, and then sometimes exhilarating things, miraculous things. And short of our friend David Williams, who's supported IlliniGuys since, I don't know, the first day that you guys started and before you even hired me, but Pat Bryant might be the best wide receiver in Illinois history since maybe David, like in a sense of like showing up big in big moments and in big games. Like I don't remember, another receiver, maybe Brandon Lloyd was that kind of a receiver at Illinois, but showing up big in big games. But boy, Pat Bryant he's got 3 game-winning touchdowns as a wide receiver this year. And again, kudos to Brett Bielema on sending his kicker out there where if he hadn't shanked it to the left, that had enough juice on it as a 58-yarder into the wind to make it. Didn't like the look of it, so he decides to put his offense back out there. And sometimes second-guessing yourself works. And in that case, I've never liked – we can talk about this if you want to, but I've never liked the timeout to ice the kicker. I've never liked that. I play golf, and if you give me another ball, like to hit the green on a par 3, I'm going to take the second ball. I'm always going to think that if you give me a practice ball, I'm going to do the second one better. And I've never liked it, and I think that Greg Schiano got bid on it, and I think – Brett Bielema made an excellent call to go, no, I'm not going to send my kicker back out there again. I think my offense can get this. And kudos to the whole operation. I thought pass protection throughout the entire game was relatively pretty good. And then I thought the whole operation of getting the ball to your best player, Pat Bryant, and letting him get in space. And he's not the fastest wide receiver in the country, but boy, he can make you miss. And I do think he's going to have a great career on Sundays at the next level after this year. And he proved why today. He's just a really special guy, another career day for him. And it got to a point where I really think that Luke just wanted to look for 13 and just decided if Rutgers isn't going to double cover him, or if they are going to double cover him, maybe Pat can still get open. And sure enough, he made a miraculous play, and that's why Illinois is 8-3 right now.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, Luke didn't seem to have it as normal as he would, and yet he found a way to use his legs to compensate for the fact he just was a little out of rhythm or something.
Yeah, I think the wind really bothered him. I also heard, and it makes a little bit of sense. I don't know when this could have happened, if it was before the game even, but maybe when he took a shot. Brett Bielema seemed to indicate in the post-game interview that Luke was playing hurt, or at least not 100%. That might have bothered him a little bit. So you take that into consideration. But that kid's got moxie. That kid's got guts. This is his fifth game-winning touchdown drive as an Illinois quarterback, and he hasn't completed 2 years as a starter at Illinois. He has that ability to just when the game needs to be slowed down and he needs to be a veteran leader, he can do that. And he has the ability and the trust. The offensive line guys really like him. Helps when you buy their NIL shirts voluntarily, but Pat Bryant loves him. Zachary Franklin loves him. Luke's a leader. He didn't get voted captain, but Luke's a leader and has the ability to never think that if Illinois has the ball last, Illinois might not win. And I think this year has exemplified that when he's found Pat Bryant at Nebraska in overtime, he's found Pat Bryant against Purdue in overtime, and now he's found him today. He said it in the Peacock interview. He was like, I'm just really thankful to have Pat Bryant on my team because if I throw him the football, great things are going to happen. And sometimes sports is really that simple. And kudos to some guys that have taken some shots. Bart Miller's offensive line has taken some shots, sometimes rightfully so. I thought the pass pro and actually the run blocking, especially in the second half, was pretty solid. And I thought the guys up front really did a good job of giving at least Luke enough time to make plays in the pocket. And if you give Luke time to make plays in the pocket, this year, he's been able to find guys that can make plays.
I thought it was also, obviously, we talked Pat Bryant, 197 yards in receiving, which in terms of the single game puts him up to seventh, knocking Mike Sherrard back. Now he's right behind Isaiah Williams, who ironically had 200 yards just almost a year ago this month. Of course, this month. Yeah. And of course, 2 years ago this month. And of course, Casey Washington, I'm sorry, they both had stuff. So Isaiah's fifth at 200 yards, and that was in 11-4 of last year. And then Casey Washington on 11-25 had 218. So you get three teammates who were all on the same team now are stacked there. It shows that while Brett Bielema, of all things you expect to see the great running backs, and he's managed to put together a hell of a wide receiver room as he's at it.
Yeah, George McDonald did a hell of a job just coaching that unit, right? Because Casey wasn't a George recruit. Isaiah sure wasn't a George recruit, but they developed that room. And then Stepp did a really good job this year of developing that room with guys like Bryant, guys like Franklin, and then you guys got guys like Colin Dixon. Alex Capra-Jones makes another big play. And then the development of Hank Beatty has been a big lift for Illinois this year, especially in this month. But no, I think Casey Washington got drafted because of what he did in November last year. Let's just be real about this. Like, he finished the way you want somebody to finish as a veteran. Pat Bryant's doing exactly the same, except he's been doing it all year. And the way that he's been doing it late in these games, it just shows you what kind of leader he is, the reason he was voted one of the co-captains. And one of the reasons why when Justin Stepp took this job, he realized his first year was going to be a lot easier than he thought it was going to be because of guys in that room like Pat Bryant. When you have guys like Isaiah Williams and even Casey Washington walk out of that room and then you lose your position coach, like Stepp walks into that room and then looked at Pat Bryant and went, oh, he can coach these guys. I don't really have to do much. I can focus on the younger guys, which is what he's done because he knows Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin are going to do their job. And that's a big, what Justin Stepp's really had to worry about is making sure that Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin are healthy, and which we're going to try to find out about Zachary Franklin after this game, but just have gas in their tank at the end of games. I thought he did a really good job of kind of making sure that Pat Bryant, I'm going to love to see the snap count, but I think he took Pat Bryant out occasionally, even on the drives where they scored in the second half, so that he could have gas in the tank for the last couple of drives, and he needed it. And even on he got targeted, Mike, I think, what was it, like 7 times or like 9 times? If you target Pat Bryant, usually you get a completion, right? I mean, the efficiency there is just so high. And that's the mark of somebody who should be playing on Sundays next year and probably will be playing a significant amount on Sundays next year. And I think it's a testament to a 4-year player that has finally blossomed into one of the better receivers in the Big Ten. He's going to be an all Big Ten receiver. It's just a matter of what team he gets on, because I think he's made a deserving case to be one of those wide receivers next to an unbelievably talented freshman at Ohio State to be possibly an all Big Ten first-team wide receiver.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And if you look at what defenses are doing to stay up with him, I think that's a huge testament to what he does. I also thought the interesting thing is Illinois got themselves in a lot of second and longs today.
Yeah.
Is that just a matter of maybe just being willing to throw more on first down? What is that? Because a lot of people reflexively say, if we didn't call as many running plays on first down, everything would be better. I'm not certain if it's quite that simple, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Today, it's not. Today, it's called they had a penalty on first down, and that set them back. And then suddenly, if you gain a little bit on second down, still it's second and a lot. They had a lot of first down. I'm going to go back probably and look. I would have loved if you'd have given me this question 5 minutes ago, because the penalties mostly came on early downs. And the fact that Illinois ended the game, what did they end the game? Hold on one second. They ended the game 4 of 10. That's to get a first down on 40% of your third downs is actually pretty remarkable when you consider what they were looking at on first down after pre-snap penalties or early down penalties. If I'm not mistaken, I think Melvin Priestley had 4 today. And I joked in our game room, half jokingly, that this was the concern that this Illinois coaching staff had all year, which was Melvin Priestley, while being one of the more athletic and physically gifted offensive tackles in the SWAC, he was also the most penalized offensive tackle in the SWAC. He had 4 of them today. He probably earned 3 of them because Bart Miller's got to get him to stop hopping up and down like a bunny, because that's going to get called, especially when you show up already the most penalized player in the SWAC. They were ready to give Melvin penalties early this year. You got to stay in your stance, man. And I think he got a unsportsmanlike conduct, which again, that's par for the course for Melvin, which they thought was what they were going to have to coach out of him. He's done a better job this year overall. He got caught. It happens on the road a lot for him too. I think when the environment isn't pristine for him at home, he tends to get a little rattled. But it was the pre-snap penalties, and it wasn't just Melvin. It was a holding penalty here, a offensive false start. Pat Bryant gets as awesome of a game as Pat Bryant had. He had that false start as a wide receiver, which you just can't do. So I think Illinois ended up with 12 penalties today. My God, I think almost all of them, if not all of them, came on early downs. So that's why they were back up today. It wasn't a whole lot of, hey, let's run it up the middle and make it 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8. It was, hey, let's run the football and get something so we can make it 2nd and 12, because we're already at 1st and 15. So that's what Illinois was fighting against mostly in the first half, was just getting out of their own way in the first half and trying to figure out a way to sustain drives, because I really think, God, I think Rutgers, I thought I saw something where Rutgers had the ball for 20 of the first 30 minutes of the first half. And the reason that is because Illinois goes through either 3 and out or 4 and out, and because they just got themselves behind the chains. And that's something that you can look at on film and go, guys, it's November. We can't be doing this anymore. It's also a team like Illinois, who's one of the more least penalized teams, not only in the Big Ten, but in the country. So that was way out of character. It happens more on the road than at home for Illinois, but it really was out of character today for Illinois.
Yeah, I thought we were very fortunate, because if this game doesn't have the last minute heroics, we're talking about a missed extra point and 11 penalties as costing you the game.
Correct.
And so as a coach, I would have much preferred to win a game and be able to lecture about stuff than to lose a game. And Illinois is in the very rare air for Illinois teams of being able to win at Northwestern. And if they can get a bowl game, finish the season with 10 wins.
How about
that? That is an accomplishment that if you would have told me in the preseason that was happening, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out a way. I think a lot of Illini fans, how Illinois was going to get bowl eligible. They did that by
I
Halloween.
thought 5-7 to 7-5 was possible, but that you needed some good fortune to make that happen. And Illinois has made their good fortune in late games, and knock on wood, they haven't had a lot of serious injuries.
Correct. And I think that, again, I've been pretty consistent about this. We did the preseason pod. Like, what was my answer, Mike? Tell me what the score of the Kansas game is. Because I thought the momentum of the year was just going to fly for Illinois if they could get by that with a W. They did. And then they got bowl eligible by Halloween. And then this team, again, if you want to do like a whole season thing, like the one stub your toe was Minnesota, right? And God help everybody if Illinois was sitting here right now with 2 losses to Penn State and to Oregon going into this last week of the regular season. We would all be thinking about if somehow, some way Indiana lost the bucket, Illinois is the 4th Big Ten team in the CFP. And we're all trying to – what we would be doing, quite honestly, Mike, is we'd be trying to put Illinois' resume up against some of those 2-loss SEC teams and go, how does our resume look any worse than yours? And but they did. But I felt like this team really did a good job of figuring out a way to again, escape with a win, a Big Ten road win. It's second of the year. Those are really hard to come by. Brett Bielema knows how hard those are to come by. And I thought in the second half, short of the final touchdown drive by Rutgers, both sides of the ball made really critical adjustments at halftime that allowed Illinois to make a comeback. They were only down 9 at the half. Make a comeback and look like a team that was a veteran football team that had every right to win this football game. And I give kudos to everybody on that coaching staff for being able to make those adjustments and look like a quality football team. I really thought Aaron Henry made some quality adjustments to what Rutgers was doing well in the first half against his defense. And again, short of that last touchdown drive, I thought Illinois' defense really bowed up and played quite well. I thought Illinois' offense was spectacular. Again, 4 touchdown drives on their last 4 drives. You can't do any better than that. And I thought, again, sometimes it's as simple as getting Pat Bryant the ball, but I also think they slowly but surely found more and more confidence out of their quarterback, who, as the game went along, at least figured out a way to get yards. And whether it was with his legs, he led Illinois in rushing today, or with his arm, trying to find guys like Pat Bryant or a Hank Beatty in big spots to move the chains.
Yeah, I look at this team now. They've got an opportunity potentially to run into a Mississippi State in the Citrus Bowl. And of course, as we see in college football,
Mississippi State's not bowl eligible. Trust me.
I'm sorry. I meant Ole Miss. Yeah.
Lane Kiffin. There's no happiness in Starkville this year.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't want a rematch, but Lane Kiffin might be one of the people in line to fight the Illini on New Year's Day.
I haven't even been paying attention. Did they lose in Gainesville?
Yes.
Okay, then yes. Then yeah. And quite frankly, Mike, again, you're playing a zombie Ole Miss team. Like I've told you before, yeah, you win that game at Wrigley Field, which, Mike, we all know, and I don't have a problem saying this, that's going to be an Illinois home game. 2 out of every 3, and I think I'm being generous, are fans in Wrigley Field are going to be wearing orange and blue. That's just the way that game works, especially when it's at a neutral site like Wrigley Field. That's the way it works. So if it's a pseudo home game for Illinois, you win that one, and you're playing a zombie SEC team. Now, I think Illinois might have some opt-out guys too, but the amount of opt-out guys on that SEC bowl game and Citrus Bowl game, that guys that aren't going to play, you might see what happened to Florida State last year, where I think they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 45 guys opt out of that game. It might be that bad, where now you're playing, in terms of scholarship football players, you're playing essentially, in terms of numbers, an FCS roster. Because it's, for Mike, you got to understand, for the top end of that SEC, it's all been about making the playoff. And if they don't make the playoff, we're done. We're going to go play professional football, or we're going to go in the portal. I think that's a really good matchup for Illinois, playing any zombie SEC team that doesn't make the playoff. And if you're Illinois, you know how Brett Bielema feels about these things. He'll figure out a way to motivate his guys to try to get that 10th win. And that would be a miraculous thing for Illinois, not only for this year, but I think going into this offseason, that Brett Bielema needs a lot of momentum going into what I think could be a really good 2025. Because, Mike, let's not forget Illinois is one of the younger teams in power conference football this year, with a roster of a lot of veteran leaders, but a lot of guys that are going to play a lot next year that are sparingly getting a lot of playing time this year.
Especially when you take a look at Illinois was projected this year as a 13th, I think, in the Big Ten was around where they were projected.
Everybody had them at that 5 to 6 win total. Everybody.
Yeah, and then if you look back at the history of Illinois football, they have a whopping 3 seasons of 10 wins, coming in 2001 when they went 10-2,
Sure.
coming in 1989 when they went 10-2, and coming in 1983 when they went 10-2. To have Brett Bielema take a team that was projected between 5 and 6 wins and to end up with 10 victories, hell, 9 victories, but even 10 is nothing short of amazing. Now, of course, the national guys don't care because it's Illinois, but I would say that probably if I was going to do a coach of the year, and this is why I think there's 2 candidates that I would put out there. One of them is obvious, Kurt Signetti.
Yeah.
The next one is Billy Napier, because he had the hardest schedule that anybody's ever seen.
Oh, you're talking about national. Okay, yeah.
National. And I'll be honest with you, Billy Napier, if he gets this team to 7-5 this year against that murderer's row that he's faced, that is amazing. And then Signetti going 11-1. I'm assuming I'm gonna tell people I'm assuming they're gonna beat Purdue. Him going 11-1. I don't know that you could give it. I don't know you could take it away from Signetti, but Napier is there, and then I think Brett Bielema, with what he was projected to do, would be another guy that you would have to think about. But it's Illinois. It's not that exciting. It's not that cool. It's not that sexy.
Yeah, I thought you were just talking about Big Ten, and I think there's 2 in the Big Ten, obviously. It's Sig and Bielema. I think if Indiana makes the playoff, you give it to Sig, but I think Bielema makes a hell of a case if Sig didn't exist, right?
Yeah, but unfortunately, Sig was predicted at 17th, right ahead of Purdue.
Sure,
and
of course, right?
Yeah, I can't try to talk out of that.
I think you're right. Whether or not the national guys want to recognize, like Brett Bielema and this staff have done a hell of a job. And that includes his guys like Barry Lunny and Aaron Henry. I think they've done a really good job of improving this team throughout the course of the season, improving this team throughout the course of games. I just think that this staff that has come together has done a really good job. And I think you've seen some guys start to play. One of the things, you'll see it in my film review, which will get out a little earlier because I'm for various reasons. I thought one of the second half adjustments that was really smart was, look, Gabe Yakus is going to play on Sundays. He's not equipped to cover the quarterback option. Good news is that on Sundays, he's probably not going to see the quarterback option. So what did Aaron Henry do in the second half? Like, okay, let's put the middle linebacker on the quarterback, and let's just make sure that Gabe can just go straight toward the pocket. That's a very subtle adjustment, but it allowed Rutgers to not move the ball as well and not give Ethan Kaliamakis like an ability to just scramble or take the RPO when he wanted to. So that's a subtle adjustment that allowed Aaron Henry to get off the field on 3rd downs in the second half. That's him. That is him improving from year 1 to year 2 as a defensive coordinator. And that's what Brett Bielema was talking about in August in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil when we were talking to him of, look, I'm just looking for improvement. And I've seen things in Aaron that give me hope that there's improvement there. And you've seen like the Michigan State game plan, what he did against Michigan, what he did in the second half, I thought today, again, minus the last drive of the game. But even in the last drive of the game, Mike, like, again, I did it in my film review last week where people are so frustrated with Aaron Henry when he only rushes 3. What did he do in that last drive, Mike? He rushed like 4, 5, 6 and just came after that guy. And they made pitches and catches against one-on-ones. And
and I'll be honest with you, the disappointing thing was they had a hard time getting to the quarterback, even when they were doing 6. And then, look, as a guy who played defensive end back in the early Ice Age,
sure,
you cannot lose that outside contain. And when you get deeper than the quarterback, you're in trouble. if you aren't maintaining. And we saw that out of the guy over the right tackle. We've seen that all year long.
Yeah, it's usually been Yakis, where it's
Right.
like he usually loses leverage, which is he'll shuffle his feet a couple of steps in the wrong direction, and suddenly now he does not have the leverage to make the tackle. Again, moving laterally is not what he's really good at. And the good news is that on Sundays, nobody is going to ask him to do that. It's going to be, hey, Gabe, go get the quarterback. And that's going to be to his benefit on Sundays. Right now, I think Aaron Henry has figured out, okay, at least he did in the second half, why don't I put James Kreutz on the quarterback? And then you just make sure that if it's a inside run on the RPO, Gabe, you go snuff that out, which he's really good at. Holding containment on the perimeter, that's not Gabe Yakis's best trait. And
Yeah,
and
and
part
that's
of being a
one
real part
you
of being a
can
really
game
good
plan
coach
for.
like this is to say, okay, you're a really good player, but you don't do this really well. I need to stop asking you to do it. If you don't
Yeah.
do it really well, and I'm a coach and I'm continually asking you to do it, at some point it's not on the player, because some people just don't have skill sets that allow them to do certain things. It doesn't make them bad players. Gabe
Right.
Yakis is certainly not a bad player. What I'm really happy about is what Luke Altmaier and Pat Bryant, and quite frankly, Brett Bielema was called to put the offense back on the field, does is it allows Gabe Yakis's personal foul penalty to not be the deciding factor of this football game, because that's unfortunate. Gabe can't do that. He knows he can't do that. That's stuff that we saw last year, and it can't happen. But I really don't like it when guys are put on that kind of put into the woodshed per se, because they did something in a split second that was really stupid.
Right.
And so kudos, because again, like you were saying, Mike, you get to teach this off of a win, and that's always better than trying to figure out how you're going to get home from New Jersey after a loss like that. I'm just really happy that somebody who's a really good player and quite frankly one of the better defensive players in that building doesn't have to live, at least for a week, with you're the reason we lost this football game.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm happy for him, because I know he's a really good player, and it's his penalty, quite frankly, was a little out of character for Gabe. He's usually not.
And if it wasn't that, Matt, it would be we can't miss extra points. If it wasn't that, we can't have 11 penalties in a game.
The missed extra point was weird. I don't mean to say that it was like it was a bad snap, but Hugh got it down. David just shanked it.
No, I agree.
I think he knew it when he did it, and
it was out of character for him.
Boy, that was weird. And he even gave that look of, man, that was weird. So
I know that look well, Matt. That's me off the tee, and I look at the shot and I go, "Wow, that was really weird."
I've had that look before, and I don't even want to look at that on video because there's not much to correct. That was just really bad, and I haven't seen David look that bad on a field goal. Not even in preseason practice that we're allowed to watch. He's never looked that bad. It's almost like he almost slipped, because the wind really isn't going to affect a college point after attempt. He wasn't really affected by that. The snap wasn't. I was talking to a special teams coach this week about Robbie Disher about this. If the snap's bad, it can actually freak the kicker out because it just disrupts the whole
pacing. The whole pace is off. Yeah.
I don't even know if that happened, because I just feel like he took a really weird step and almost slipped and then just shanked the thing to the left. But that was really weird. I also didn't hate the idea of trying to go for two to tie it, because at the time I don't think this game is going to end 17-15. So let's go ahead and do this. But that would have been a hell of a deal, where it's because quite frankly, then Illinois got the 2-point play back with Josh McCray. So it's not like chasing points really hurt you, but you knew you were going to have people that go, I should have kicked the extra point because chasing points was just dumb. I'm like, no, he's been doing this a while. The card says go for two because we can tie it. And I don't know how many possessions we're going to get, but I didn't hate the idea there. I just thought the play call was a little weird in the sense that if Pat Bryant's not open, that play is dead. But look at the box score. If Pat Bryant wasn't open today, a lot of plays were dead. So again, I feel like Illinois rode its best players. I thought kudos to the offensive line today. I thought run blocking was pretty solid. I thought Josh Kreutz and before he got hurt, Brandon Henderson were really getting out there. If you saw the touchdown for Josh McCray and Olin Kreutz, that's his dad. Josh Kreutz and Brandon Henderson are literally 3 yards in the end zone. Like Josh could have walked in. The idea, I think it was Melvin. That's the right tackle. Yeah, that would have been Melvin. Melvin completely sealed up the 30-yard run for Luke Altmaier where the announcers, I'm not even going to go there, but like the announcers got one thing, which was Luke could have jogged in, which is basically what he did, because Melvin Priestley took his guy and then went to the second level and took his guy. And suddenly now you could literally drive an 18-wheel truck down the lane that Luke Altmaier had to walk in the end zone. That was offensive line based and wide receiver blocking based. And I think you can see that. I said it in our game room. That first run for Josh McCray, when I think he got like 17 yards, he broke a tackle, got into the second level, broke another one, got that 17-yard run. Pat Bryant is literally turning to the sideline and pounding his chest because he knows if he'd have blocked his cornerback, it's now a one-on-one run and McCray probably goes for 60. That's not normal for a wide receiver to do that. That's, again, why I think Pat Bryant is special, and I think that he's going to be a higher draft pick than people think he's going to be this spring in the NFL draft, because I think a lot of people are going to see some fundamentals in him that are like, wow, that's a guy we can play in a lot of situations in a professional football organization. And kudos to him, because that's a 4-year player that's developed, and I'm really happy for him. And kudos to him for making one hell of a play at the end of the game that I think goes down as maybe, with the Isaiah Williams catch of last year at Minnesota, one of the better pitching catches in Illini history in a long time.
Hey, look, we're going to wrap this one up now, folks. We will still be going live again in a few minutes at the end of the basketball game, and then you won't have to hear or see me for a few days, so be thankful on that. But like I said, this was as exhilarating of a win. You got to go back to the end of last year. And I guess if you would have told me the day Brett Bielema was hired as Illinois coach, we would have this many airborne rallies in the last minute of a game, I would have laughed at you. And clearly I was wrong. This is another notch in the Brett Bielema belt of why he was a good choice and why Josh Whitman has put together probably the greatest trio of men and women's basketball coach and men's football coach at one time that the University of Illinois has ever had.
Yeah, Mike, I think his 7-figure coaches right now are pretty good, because Sean is now a 7-figure coach. When you're talking about Brett Bielema, Brad Underwood, and Shauna Green, 1, 2, 3 is your highest paid employees in the state of Illinois. That's not too bad. And all 3 of them are ranked. So at least for a week. And I think Illinois, I think Illinois has a shot to win 9 regular season games for the first time since 2007. A good shot, because they're going to be favored. I kept saying they were going to be favored against Rutgers. Let's also understand, you want to talk about a great coaching job that Bielema's done, Mike? This is the 5th time in the last 2 years that Bielema has won a game as a road underdog in a 1-score game. That's coaching, man. That's getting your team prepared, getting your team to mentally and physically believe that they can win this football game, emotionally believe that they can win the football game, and then going out and executing. And quite frankly, Mike, in a game where weather had some impact, that wind was definitely impactful, but also in a game where you have 12 penalties, you didn't play clean football and you won this football game. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. You've said it even before I did, Mike. You give Brett Bielema somewhat of an even roster with the guy on the other sideline, you give yourself a shot. And I think you've seen it this year, where if he has somewhat of an even roster going into the football game, he's got a shot. And,
look, I'll be honest with you, and I'll say this, and I get Ohio State fans mad at me all the time, but if you put Brett Bielema in Columbus and you put Ryan Day in Illinois, the Buckeyes probably don't have a loss this year, and Illinois does not have 8 wins. I'm sorry. You can disagree with me all you want. But
no, I don't disagree with you on that, and here's why. I actually think with some of our subscribers at IlliniGuys, it would be more entertaining football from Ryan Day, but it wouldn't produce more wins. You know what I mean? Like,
what is Brett, 9-4 in 1-score games?
It's 9 wins in the last 2 years in 1-score games, and that's pretty phenomenal. And the idea that they've been able to go to Nebraska and win an overtime game and execute in the way they did down the stretch there, and then go to Rutgers and win a road game the way that I thought, again, short of the final drive on defense, which I still don't think is, we haven't even mentioned the bad, but I know we got to get out of here, but like, the tackling was bad. It was poor tackling. You had too many penalties. basically you did a lot of dumb stuff on the last drive to where Rutgers is able to maybe escape with a victory. Because I thought it would have been an escape. They were up at half, but like Illinois is playing bad. And then you're able to continue to just go down and score, go down and score, go down and score. But I thought the defense really rebounded in that third quarter.
I agree.
And allowed Illinois to get its offense in gear and then take the lead with 3 minutes left to go. My thought is that if Illinois plays a cleaner brand of football, I think Illinois is leading at half, and I think that Illinois is comfortably winning this football game. But you also saw the ability for Illinois, whether it's with Altmaier, whether it's with Josh McCray, whether it's with Aiden Lawfrey, whether it's with Khalil Valentine, get the running game going a little bit, and allow Illinois to get into second and manageable. Like Brett, you saw Brett Bielema at halftime go, we got to be able to run the ball. That doesn't have to be with your three-headed monster at tailback. That can be with Luke Altmaier. They figured that out. Like, kudos to Barry to figuring out how to get into third and very productive third down situations. Kudos to Barry for figuring out that Pat Bryant needed the football a lot more, because I didn't think he got it enough in the first half. And again, kudos to Luke Altmaier for having, that's again, 5 game-winning touchdown drives for him, and he hasn't been here a full 2 years. That's impressive stuff. And imagine what he could be like as a third-year starter in 2025. But like right now, I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten.
Yep.
Flat out. And yeah, I think it's funny, Mike. I didn't know that under Brett Bielema they were going to have one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I didn't know they were going to have one of the better wide receiver rooms in the Big Ten. Didn't know that they were going to not be able. Didn't know that they were going to be. Oh, here's another one. Is that I don't want to get out here without mentioning this. Another guy that's going to play on Sunday, Mike, is T.Ry Edwards. I'm telling you right now, that guy made a difference in the second half because he was in Ethan Kaliamakis' kitchen every time he got a vertical pass rush as the nose tackle. That's Johnny Newton stuff. That's what Denzel Daxon was doing last year. That's what Calvin Avery was doing in his last year under Brett Bielema. Again, NFL defensive line coach Brett Bielema has gotten that group to play, I think, above its head a little bit, especially like a T.Ry Edwards that's going to get drafted. I thought they changed the line of scrimmage, especially in that third quarter. T-Raw had a great game. I thought he was going to block a Rutgers extra point. And I think T-Raw's really ticked off he didn't do it because I think he could have tackled the kicker if you go back and you watch it. But he's going to play on Sundays, and that's an unbelievable development story for Terrence Jameson's group. But I think Illinois – the other thing, Mike, that it does quickly, and we'll get out on this, is that I think this ends the narrative that Illinois is bad in November under Brett Bielema. They've now won 2 games back-to-back in November, and they're probably going to win 3 in a row. And this is going to propel Illinois into an offseason where November in 2022, we know what that was. We know what November last year was. That's why they didn't go bowling. This year's group of veterans and this year's group of leaders is just different. And I give them a lot of credit for not letting it be 3 years in a row where you're running on fumes at the end of the year. Brett Bielema's claim to fame when he took this job was that Illinois was going to play its best football in the last month of the year and games at the end of the year. And I think in 2024, they're doing that.
Yep. And that's a good positive way to end that, folks. If you want to be a participant, you want to enjoy Illini sports a little bit more than just reading things, go to IlliniGuys.com. We'll give you plenty to read. We'll give you plenty to look at. But more importantly, with those message boards, you get the chance to interact with Matt, Ked, Brad, Larry, myself, plus thousands of other Illini fans across the country, across the planet. And it's a lot of fun. We want to get people there. $99 a year. The price has not went up at all since then. We will be back in a few minutes with our basketball live Eye on the Illini as you guys get all mic all day. I don't know what you did wrong, and I apologize for it ahead of time. But until then, go Illini.